Oh, hey out there on SpeedGaming 4. Welcome back to another Worlds Collide Wednesday, the Final Fantasy VI Randomizer, where we've got a couple of racers for you tonight, showing off the flags for next week's race settings in our concurrent or currently going on event, the Flashback Battle Royale, celebrating the 5-year history of the Worlds Collide Randomizer. My name's the Schwantz27, and I'm joined by one free Fitz. What's happening, Fitz?
Hello and good evening. What's happening? Well, I'm just a humble son of a merchant from 1000 AD, but I'm excited to watch some of this Doom's Rage flag set action. I got to participate in the events that were flashing back to had a blast. And I think this one was my favorite. It tended to be fast. It's mostly about hitting stuff. And I think I'm really rooting for the is the two character start no Umaru or Gogo, or is it anyone's in that pool? I was just
yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. It is completely random, so we could start with the Dream, the Gogo Umaru, and I think
I would love to
when we
see
did
that.
when we did one of these practice races, I think a few weeks back, we did have a Gogo Umaru start, which will be pretty funny because then you kind of know where your character is. They're either at Zone Eater or at the Yeti Cave or at Kefka at Narsh, but we'll get into all that later. So for those of you that are watching this for the first time, what the heck even is a Worlds Collide Randomizer? Well, it's the Final Fantasy VI, or as some people might know it, the Final Fantasy III for the Super Nintendo RPG, and we randomize lots of different stuff about the game. We randomize what characters we start off with. We randomize the abilities that those characters have. We shuffle around the bosses and the dragons amongst one another. We randomize what is in shops and what is in chests. We randomize the spells that Espers teach and where you can find those things. And the objective of the game is to go and beat Final Kefka, the boss of the game, which in this case requires us to recruit 6 characters and find 9 Espers from our starting 2. Do you want to go over, I guess, a little bit more of the settings of the game here, Fitz, while I get our runners off and running?
Yeah, so kind of from the sort of baseline flag set that we tend to run, we're starting with one less character, so 2 starting characters can be anyone. The commands, they are going to be random. We're not going to have any of the powerful magic-based commands, because that's kind of a theme of Doom's Rage, is less magic. So additionally, our scaling, which is how much the enemy's levels and power goes up as we make progress, is pretty high, with a high ceiling of level 50. The big one is our favorite bosses, Doom, Poltergeist, and Goddess. They are not mixed into the overall boss pool, but shuffled amongst the spots. So we pretty much know we have to fight some of the toughest bosses at their highest level before we can fight Final Kefka. Another big thing is, in the theme of Doom's Rage, all of the kind of spells we would want to use against Doom, and there are, elements that can do damage to them, are removed from the pool. So Ultima, our fire spells, including Merton, and the bolt spells. And worst of all, at the very beginning, we're just taking a -10 to magic power because of how damage is calculated. Magic tends to be pretty powerful early and can help us break into a seed. It's not going to be as useful here, even on characters that might naturally have a higher magic stat. Anything missed? There are some objectives we'll probably talk about, and the adding levels to the bosses and dragons out of the gate also kind of makes things interesting, or at least for me, I would tend to prefer an opening check that didn't have a boss, so I could kind of catch up with the boss levels.
All right, so we do have Celeste with Dance, which is Mog's ability. A decent opening dance. There is Wump all the way at the end there, but there are a couple of AoE spells for us to have. And we also have Natural Magic slot Realm. So either Celeste's Natural Magic or Terra's Natural Magic has been randomized onto Realm, and the spells that we acquire and the levels that we get them at are also randomized. So it's not necessarily the same list that you would expect in the vanilla game here. So what our runners are doing for the first 5 or 10 minutes, we're just going to suss out what is in shops, what is in chests, to try and figure out how we're going to get past our first check. Now, Worlds Collide is interesting because the way that Worlds Collide works, there are no key items. The characters are kind of the key items that open up more checks to us. So there's a character gating system whereby the characters that you have will dictate what world events or what checks are available to you. As we see Experience Egg in the Relic Shop in Narsh. So let's write that down for later, because they're definitely going to want to buy one of those.
Indeed.
Ooh, and some dice as well.
Some pearl rods for sale. Rods are very nice because we can break those. They ignore magic defense and reflect, and generally just do a lot of damage, both early and late, even with the diminished magic power. We do have 2 of our highest magic stat characters, which is a big influence on how much damage we do with spells.
Oh, for sure. And with the increased set of equipable items, it's shuffle plus 50% random. It's original plus 50% random versus shuffle plus 50% random versus 33%, which is what we're used to. Both Celeste and Realm can actually use that fixed dice should we choose to go back and go buy it. We could also get a fixed dice from a check as a reward in addition to a character or an Esper. So Fitz, with these 2 characters, what do we have available to us, and what would you kind of gravitate towards doing first in terms of trying to get progression here?
Yeah, I'm going to answer a question from chat real quick, and then I'll answer your question. So the shops and chests are shuffled, and then 35% of them are replaced with random things. So there is a little bit boosted, I guess, versus like the most commonly run flag set. And then for these characters, Celeste, we can go to the Opera House, go up into the rafters, dodge or fight some rats, and fight a boss to get a character Esper item there. We can also go to the basement of South Figaro, which I imagine both of our runners will prioritize. There's a lot of loot down there, and there's a free egg on the docks from, I think that was Drinks Glue said, yeah. And we go down to the basement, and there will be either a character, an Esper, or a high tier item in there. And then Celeste's final set of checks is completing the Magitech Factory, which is 2 Esper item checks, a minecart ride, and then after 2 more bosses, we get ourselves a guaranteed character or Esper. Realm has 1 incredibly fast check of just running in Esper Mountain, and we get a preview ahead of time whether it's a character or an Esper / item. And her other check is doing the World of Ruin Jador Ozer's mansion, running around through there in the dark, fighting the painting monsters and the boss there to get either a character Esper or an item. While we're there, the auction house can also potentially have, is it 1 Esper in this one?
Great question. I can go certainly take a look here, but it's at least 1. It might be 2. Let's see what the maximum number of Espers are. There's also some checks that are not considered character gated, and the only one that can reward another character is the Kefka Narsh battle, where you go and split up your party in the vanilla game. So up to 1 Esper out of the 2 auction house reward slots. So only 1 Esper we can get in the auction house. We can talk to the dude at the front door, and he could tell us whether or not there are Espers for sale. And it looks like we do have Ramu there with Mute and Flare and HP plus 100. So always nice to find Mute right out of the gate early, because not only are our runners trying to figure out how to defeat whatever is going to be in front of them, you always have to fight Kefka at the end. And one of the parts of Final Kefka is able to be muted. So that's really, really nice to see. Drinkskaloo shows us a 43,000-ish GP to Zen Thief. That's also one of those ungated checks there, and it could be an Esper or an item. And I believe he said for this glowing stone or shiny stone, so it is an Esper there at the Zen Thief as well.
Yeah, I would also say those HP Espers, particularly in these flags where there's a higher, the level 50 max enemy level, and having to fight all of the statues, a couple of them do bad things when they get scaled high enough. Particularly Poltergeist and Goddess are known to really do things, like in the Goner Ultima tier things. And
nasty.
Because those attacks are so nasty, really hit points are kind of one of our main defenses. So having that early HP Esper, in addition to if we find a Valiant Knife, which boosting hit points helps with the damage of that, is wow. Second egg for Drinkskaloo in the clock of Albrook.
Yeah, also buying 4 Atlas armlets early. So he, is saying, as you mentioned, this flag set relies more on physical offense than magical offense, and Atlas armlets will boost your physical damage by 25%. So he bought 4 of them already in anticipation of rounding out his team with physical offensive characters. So really nice there from Drinkskaloo. And it looks like Christopher Warkin, one of my favorite names in Worlds Collide, is going to buy one of those sets of fixed dice. Fixed dice do not scale off the typical physical damage formula, but it's just based on the dice rolls and your levels. However, it does ignore defense, and you can do the same damage from the back row. So that's something to have really nice early on here.
Oh, a free one, though, in South Figaro box.
Oh, boy.
That's tough.
Oh, and an ice shield. So we can get ice shields from our check rewards. That's one of them, along with the Mega Elixir and high tier weapons. So we can also learn ice spells that you mentioned earlier. So that'll teach us ice too. However, the Flame Shield and the Thunder Shield will not teach us that fire and lightning magic.
Yes. Yeah, the having the early dice, and especially with the equipability, that's gonna give us a pretty I wouldn't say on average reliable option to do damage that doesn't need stats. And I think buying the Atlas armlets also checks out, where it's like, well, the seed is just giving out eggs. Eventually we'll get our hands on one of the big swords, and our physical damage is more dependent on our level than it is necessarily like our stats, or even to a greater extent the weapon we're wielding certainly has a play there. So with so many eggs for sale and also just like loose around in the world, Drinks is one short of the experience omelet, which
we know where they are, just in case.
Yeah, like where it's just like kind of luscious, where you're like, I might be over full after eating this omelet. It's pretty packed with leafy greens. I kind of lost the metaphor there, but these Delta bugs are about to lose their life. That's a nice grind fight for Christopher to find. One of the big challenges sometimes is getting off level 3 so that we can start doing more damage and having more hit points to take damage. So that's one I would think I would note, because they're pretty easy to kill and they give a solid amount of experience points.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the audio. It sounds like it's lagging a little bit behind Christopher Warkin. I'm trying to figure out how to right that ship, but just bear with me in the meantime. So we had mentioned, what are we going to go do first? And I think, as you just said, we need to get off of level 3, as Galoo sees it as 17,000 GP in World of Ruin. So I think he's going to go buy that Esper there from Zen Thief with the cheaper price after the end of the world. But yeah, I also am trying to figure out, what am I going to do for my first check here in order to get off of level 3. And sometimes it is take off the Moogle charm, because we do give our runners Moogle charms in order to avoid random encounters, but you can take them off if you'd like to have a random encounter. The Opera House Disruption has random encounters in front of a boss, and so does Owser's Mansion. So those are two checks that I think I would gravitate towards doing early on here.
Yeah, I think sometimes I like to take one even before heading into those, because it's not a high probability, but there is a chance that the encounters in those checks are ones that aren't good experience encounters, or are the handful that are absolutely terrifying and we should not try to fight them encounters. So I try to hedge a little bit, take one, but not get, try to go in like over leveled here. I think taking 2 progression without a fight is a little bit more aggressive and risky, but potentially can, especially with these experience eggs, like slingshot us into having more levels for everyone by the end game, right? Since party members join at party average, if we can really get a lot of levels on our first couple of characters, everyone's joining at higher levels from that point. It's kind of like how a lot of the vanilla speedrun sort of works. But I find that to be useful to like think about. So Drinks Glue might have to break a rod or use some of these dice to like get through that first encounter, but maybe they also find an undead enemy that you can just throw a Revivify at, and ooh. These are pretty good fights, but kind of scary for Questifer in the Opera House.
Yeah, if we can get through this, and we do have fixed dice, right? Doing 12,000 damage just early on level 8 is very difficult to do unless you have a high magic power character. And in this flag set, we don't. Even the highest magic power character, Realm, is doing half that amount of damage with that 7 flush there. Yeah, these are great fights, as we do see Natural Magic just taught Realm Doom, which is another spell that we want for the final boss, so that's really good there. I like what Questifer Warkin's doing here, going to the Opera House Disruption. This would be one of my choices here. I think Owser's Mansion is a safer choice, because there is that save point before the boss, but this is also much faster, I think, than Owser's Mansion doing this here.
Yeah, and there's always a chance, and I'm going to try to hold off on cursing until later in the run, that there's something here that would be tough. But I would also be like, with dice, having a breakable shield, having like a pearl rod or 2 kicking around, and it can't be any of the statues, which is kind of like the nice part about shuffled statues, is like, right, I won't randomly run into them, but I will have to deal with them at their worst. So it cuts both ways. It's a good and a bad thing. But I think
because normally you don't fight the statues until you're done with your requirements, right? So normally you go into Kefka's Tower at the end of the game. You can go in whenever you'd like, but normally you go in at the very end, and that's when enemies will be their highest. So this is a pretty high level boss in the vanilla game, hiding in the Hide Knights here. How does Worlds Collide manage the fact that this is an end game boss and this is the first thing we're fighting?
So like specifically, it's more of thinking about when we talked about the scaling, we're going to look at the tracker and we have 2 characters, 1 Esper. Let's add those together. That's 3. And then our scaling factor is 2.5 times that. So 3 times 2.5. I don't know how the rounding works. So like, let's just call it 8.
Oh no. Oh no. We have a zombied fixed dice user. This could be catastrophic here for Questifer Workin.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Did not hit her own party. That's good. Get that Revivify on that zombie as soon as possible, please. And on the other side, Drinks Glue has to deal with the fact that both of his characters are stopped here. And
Hammer
uh-oh,
time.
it doesn't look like we have a Revivify. So Christopher Walken is playing with fire here. His guy has to hope that Celeste plays nice and hits the boss instead of Realm. And uh-oh, we just cleared out a whole bunch of potential targets for Celeste to hit.
I might break this Pearl Rod hard here if we had it. Yeah, agreed with some of the chat. It's in the moment it can be hard to remember, but that's definitely something I try to really work on is like nice self.
It's getting spooky.
Like using those precious resources early often can mean a big time save or turn like an L into a W. But
there it goes. Whew.
What that is a sweaty fight for sure. That's what I would call it. Like I think my hands would be a little sweaty after that fight.
Well, the fact that Celeste is a zombie means, unfortunately, that she won't get any XP or MP from that fight. And yeah, Drinks Glue also looking at, a triple set of Enochs here, which is not
They are
fun.
rocking double dice right now. So, helping out with the averages, we have an Edgar disrupting it. A confused double dicer, but Drinks Glue.
Ooh, look at that vigor. 67 for Edgar.
It's
good to be the king. So one of the other interesting things about this randomizer is you may have noticed our characters are looking a bit funny, and that's because you can randomize the palettes or the colors of the sprites in the game. You can also swap out for completely different sprites. We have a whole community full of people that like to make sprites for the game so that you can customize your Worlds Collide experience to be whatever it is that you want, which I think is really awesome. And normally we don't highlight that very often because we like to try and stay as vanilla as possible. But in the Warring Triads flag set, the creators decided, hey, we're going to try and match the color palettes with the flag set. And since Doom is the ice boss, we're seeing a lot of blue going on here.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, there's definitely a couple of... I made a couple of flag sets that were inspired by like a free enterprise one called Supermarket Sweep. And so I picked like Final Fantasy IV sprites for all of the FF6 characters. There's a lot more characters. So like one of my favorites was like the antlion sprite for the Yeti is so good. And, like it's such like it's just incredible to watch, like both like running around at sprint shoe speed in the like the front party member, and then just like the antlion just chucking people around in battle. It just delighted me incredibly. So yeah, that is a thing that I think in a lot of events we don't necessarily show, but anytime that I'm like playing like casually or like for like just a marathon showcase, I'm usually like fiddling around with a lot of those. I would love like an all chocobo one. I think would be. Do we have enough color for that? I'm gonna make it.
That would be wild. We only have there's only 6 palettes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
we would need different chocobo sprites to pull it off.
Meanwhile, Drinks Glue is going up against Dullahan here, the boss from Daryl's Tomb in the vanilla game. There was a ghost sprite painting a picture here at Owser's Mansion, so we know that this will not be a character. It will either be an Esper, an item. That's what that designation means. And look at that! Dice, baby! Taking down Dullahan with a nice 8,000 damage. We are not even at 20 minutes left yet. That's the power of the fixed dice early on in the seed here.
Yeah, rolling 4s, 5s, or 6s, like the trips, is so choice. But yeah, there will be stretches of like doing 24, like 48 damage. That's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. It sort of plateaus in the middle of the seed where you could be doing more damage more reliably with other sources than that. Meanwhile, Christopher Walken at one of Realm's other checks. So this is Realm's other check that Drinks Glue just showed us was an Esper. This is also an Imp sprite, though that is not going to be a character here. We did get Edgar, though. So, Fitz, where can we go now that we have Edgar in our party?
Yeah, so Edgar has a free check on the Figaro Castle throne. They also give us half price at the South Figaro World of Ruin shops and the Figaro Castle item shops. The other two are taking the South Figaro Cave to unbury Figaro Castle in the World of Ruin, and then taking it back underground and exploring the Ancient Cave. Ancient Cave has a dragon. They're kind of like the South Figaro Cave one. We can preview if it's a character in the front. That's pretty nice. It's not the longest check, and there's 4 treasures that are really close to each other, which is always great. The ancient cave one is a bit of a hike. The ancient castle. Cave is a thing.
But we do get rewards for dragons, as you mentioned, so maybe it's worth taking one. And speaking of which, Drinks Clue is in the other opera house, the World of Ruin one, where, hey, we have a vanilla dirt dragon, and
there's some dice rolls.
That's more what we're used to there.
This is why I say fixed dice are okay. Like, I would give them a B in terms of offense options. Like,
yeah. When it's going well, it's going real well. When it's not, you're going to have to take it out on credit, if you will. Christopher Walken getting the Edgar discount, kingly discount hero from these particular shops. Did pick up an Esper on the throne there as Drinks Glue grabs his first dragon down of the seed. So that'll be auto reflect. So he'll be safe from a lot of different spell casts. However, it's also somewhat of a detriment because you're not able to cast a spell on yourself like Cure.
Yeah, I was gonna say also safe from healing magic on yourself.
Yeah. A bit of a womp there.
So now we've got a number that both runners we add up their characters, their espers, their dragons. They're both at 6 in terms of that number. Times 2.5, that gives us 15. So we know now that the enemies and the bosses had that +3. How does the plus factor into that?
You add it at the end, yeah.
Okay. So bosses are going to be 15 plus 3, 18, and then there's a plus or minus 2?
That's correct, yeah.
On that.
There's a finagle factor, so you can't abuse like level
math
4 flare. And,
down to.
Yeah.
This is not career day. We do not. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. This is the tale of 2 dice here. Come on, where were those quad 9s against
this is how I roll,
dragon?
Like in D&D, it's like I roll like a lot. I roll very high variance. I roll a lot of like 1s and 2s, but I roll a lot of like 19s and 20s. So Celeste's got that like high variance hand right now. It's like I only incredibly succeed or wildly fail.
All right, so Christopher Walken here in Owser's Mansion did talk to the guy at the front door, and he did say that glowing stones are available. So there's a potential that we can get yet another Esper here out of this Jador. So we know that there's one in Owser's Mansion, and there's also one in the auction house. So we'll see if Christopher Walken comes out of here with 2 or with just the 1 here and saves that for later. Meanwhile, Drinks Glue, by deduction, either has the Magitech Factory number 3 or Opera House Disruption or the Narsh battle for our characters, because of how the logic in Worlds Collide works is you have to be able to get all of the characters and all of the Espers in every single seed. So there is a logic through the seed that says you can't get soft locked out of getting everybody and recruiting them.
There's definitely a school of thought to quote like a multiple time champion Falcon hit. Do slow checks, get slow times, right? And so like as much as I'm like we shouldn't be too biased against like checks, some of them are inherently just shorter to perform. And that end of Magitech, there's a lot of time that goes by between getting the second reward and getting the actual, potential character at the end. And so I think it is generally wise if I was feeling cheeky in a race, or if I was feeling a little bit more like a gambler, then I might go for some of these longer checks like the Magitech 3, the Edgar checks once we find them. But more often than not, these days I'm trying to think more about what's going to be fast, like what can I rule out before committing to
a bit of a longer one, yeah. So Christopher Walken, also feeling the wrath of the brain pan smirks, did not use Revivify to kill them. So we have updated the bosses to not be undead. That's why hiding in the Hidenites, we couldn't just throw a Revivify at it to kill it. However, random encounters still retain that undead property. So if you know your undead enemies, they can be easily dispatched of with a Revivify. Economizer in the chest there behind the 3-door Monty shuffle. So that'll be really nice. If we end up at some point with Ice 3, we are not going to have access to Merton or Ultima, which I think are the two spells you probably want an Economizer for, though.
Yeah. It's worth a lot of money.
Yes. Which means we could be doing even more gambling at the auction house.
Or, yeah, like auction.
So Dolwyn in the chat also indicates lore. So that is correct. That we could also use it for lore as well. If we find a lore user with maybe Quasar or Grand Train on it, those are two of the higher end lore abilities. And we have our runners basically doing stuff that the other runner already did. So go drop them a follow if you are enjoying what you're watching here. I believe Drinks Glue's levels are just slightly higher than Christopher Walken's, but both of them are still staying a little bit ahead of scaling there.
Yeah. Yeah, having the dragon fight and an extra egg, I think is what we're seeing a little bit of an edge, and just kind of the nature of experience and how levels work is those early edges can grow over time, right? In terms of, I'm curious to keep our eyes on like the power differential, and especially in like a one-on-one race, it's a lot easier to kind of be able to see.
Right. It's hard a lot of times to see who has an advantage anyway, just due to the nature of the fact that we're not really looking for key items. We're just looking for counts. The counts in gold are our goals there on the tracker here. As Drinks Glue gets past hiding in the Hidenites, breaking that fire rod, like you mentioned, use the consumables when you can here. We'll pick up their Edgar, so we'll see what they decide to do after that. And this will be another Esper here for Christopher Walken. Unfortunately, Edgar, and Realm hit the deck too.
Ouch. I mean, what we are seeing is 2 dice better than 1 dice.
Well,
also, Drinks has had a couple of very high rolls on some of these like low bosses. That would be a longer fight, which, you know, that's also the dice. But I definitely feel like they're not planning to roll, you know, double dice. Ideally, we're hoping that along the way, we find something, because I feel like a lot of top runners, after that initial shopping, it's kind of like time to cut loose from our supply bases and just live off of the land, what the land provides us, like along the way from there.
Yeah, for sure. Because remember, you said that in shops we do get, and chests, it is shuffled plus 35% random. Meanwhile, we know that dragons and dead checks will drop either an ice shield, a mega elixir, or one of those high tier weapons, right? So if you need high tier weapons, you're way more likely to find them at a dragon than you will in a shop or in a chest. And Drinks Glue showing us that Sabin is the other Figa bro, and he is cosplaying as Gerard today, leading the band of merry thieves to recapture the castle for himself, maybe? I don't know. There's some alternate fanfic that we should be writing here in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Glue's levels are nuts because he had a 2-person party and he has 2 experience eggs. And his characters live through all of the fights that he took. Meanwhile, Christopher Walken had that early mishap with the zombie on Celeste, and then just had 2 other characters not being able to be picked back up from that fight. So there's sort of that snowball effect that you were talking about, Fitz, where, you know, the more levels you get, oh, hello.
That's
spiking a Valiant knife in a chest there.
Look at, who can use it?
Realm can use it, so there you go.
Point Esper.
Yep. So now is an interesting question. You
Where's
found a
Moth?
Valiant Knife. Are you going to be doing what Christopher Walken is doing here, going for that monster in a box?
Yeah,
there
more
are
box.
there are a couple in Ancient Castle, so that's really nice. So if I was Glue, I would be making a beeline for Ancient Castle as soon as possible, rotating that HP plus 100 Esper over to Realm. Even though Realm's natural strength stat is usually pretty poor, the fact that it gets plus 20 automatically in this flag set means that even she can throw hands.
Yeah, especially with, you know, a knife that can cut anything. Like, I always think of it as like a kind of teeny blade, but
Ruh-roh.
like
Oh, we have fixed dice. This is not
we have
the game.
dice and we have a knife that can cut through anything.
Yeah, so normally in this flag set, this would be a huge problem because we don't have access to fire magic. But the fact that Drinks Glue is able to easily just dice it out of existence.
Made some sort of dark offerings to the. I'm gonna have to ask in the interview, like, how do you get your dice to roll like that?
Well, it is Drinks Glue's birthday today.
That's true,
So
birthday
maybe that's what it is. Maybe
All
when
right.
he blew out his candle on his ice cream cake, because that is the best kind of cake, he said, "Let my dice rolls be 4s, 5s, and 6s."
So fixed dice are S tier on birthdays. Let's investigate this.
Yeah, so I think Drinks Glue definitely deserves a birthday follow. Christopher Walken does too, for definitely the best name in the Worlds Collide community too.
Best name in the game. Someone I'm gonna have to talk about this all Chocobo Sprite. Yeah.
All right, so that is the Figaro throne here, and this is one of the nice things about Edgar's checks is that they all synergize very well with one another. You can go to one area on the map and you can, boom, knock out 3 checks right away, and a 4th check if you go take that dragon here. And it looks like Christopher Walken will be following Drinks Glue down into the Ancient Castle. He is going to have to hurry very quickly because he's behind in both levels and in terms of progression here. So we'll see if he can catch up with some lucky dice rolls. He's gonna have to get lucky. I don't know how you're gonna get more lucky than Drinks Glue has been so far, though.
Yeah, and I think with the egg, it's like kind of like with the Edgar checks for me, it's like I know that if we do all of them the way that Drinks Glue is, like in a row, like the 3 together, probably plus the dragon and potentially what it drops, like on average is like a decent like check per minute, so to speak. But like it's so tempting to be like, well, I'm just gonna run in and get the throne, and then maybe I'll come back later. But the answer is always I don't ever come back until it's like the last place. So it's, you know, it's kind of that like I know it's best to do them all at once, but I often get tempted by like, let me just go run in and get that one though, and then we'll see what happens.
Nice dragon horn spike in the chest there. So we know we do have a pearl lance from one of the dragon drops, and that's Go-Go. So we are very quickly at 5 characters now for Drinks Glue there. Go-Go can have any command put onto them. Unfortunately, their stats are less than usually what everybody else has, so I don't think we're going to be seeing much of Go-Go. Didn't see what Sabin's command is, and it's just capture here, so that's a bit of a meh. We'll see if he can use the Valiant Knife. Otherwise, we're going to have to find another character here for our 4th.
Yeah, Go-Go only has the single check. We got to get engulfed by Zone Eater and traverse the dungeon inside of them. Usually we go down to 1 character. Being a later character, there is, because of that character gating you mentioned earlier, characters tend to lead to more characters that we find like later on in the seed. And so Sabin has a lot of fast checks, right? And a couple of them we can preview ahead of time.
There's the quad 9s.
I don't like. We're already in the world of ruin, so maybe I would. Yeah, there's some good dice. I would, even though I really don't like Zone Eater personally, I would kind of clean up my World of Ruin checks before I airship flip and start doing the save and stuff. But I could also talk myself into doing the opposite and being like, screw Zone Eater, I don't want to deal with those guards in a race.
Yeah.
Let's go just do all of Saban's checks instead and see where we're at.
Yeah, do we need the chests in there? Because remember, there are lots of chests in the Zone Eater cave.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about pugs here, this monster in a box, is that they have 100% evade, and in Worlds Collide we did fix the evade bug amongst various other bugs that were in the base game. And how capture works is capture does the fight command first and then the steal command second. So if the fight command misses, then you won't be able to steal from them at all. So that's kind of what you're seeing here from Drink's Glue, is he's missing with the captures. You can steal Minervas from bugs, but it's only with steal and not capture, and no drops there. Christopher Workin, meanwhile, short-circuiting out of the Ancient Castle, so is not going to get go-go, and maybe this is one way that they catch up here, is that they say, you know what, Ancient Castle's a very long walk, I'm just going to go ahead and start doing Sabin checks, and as you mentioned, this is the only one that we have in the World of Ruin for Sabin, in the Collapsing House. What are some of his checks in the World of Balance?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if Questifer has bought the Esper here yet, but this is, if not, then this is like a two check visit here now having Sabin. So yeah, Sabin unlocks the Collapsing House event in the World of Ruins, and most flag sets there's no timer. There's some treasures and a couple monster in the boxes in there. It also unlocks the Mount Colts, which is like just kind of a decent amount of walking, and then there's a boss at the end. They also unlock the Imperial Camp, which is a series of fixed encounters. We can see if the reward is a character or Esper after the first one. There's also a monster in the box there. We of course have the Phantom Forest to run through. That we get the reward at the beginning, and then have to do the rest of the check to exit the train. And the super fast one is just run and jump down the falls.
We are going to go chase waterfalls, unlike the great TLC warned against us.
And we get like a story heal before we jump down the falls, so sometimes I just route that in whenever I'm like, I need a full party heal.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Use the game to its advantage here. And I don't think Questifer Workin bought the Zen Thief Esper, and he's doing a lot of Esper shuffling here, and Glue has already made up that time coming back out of the Ancient Castle. We're going to see what the reward is here at Collapsing House first. Celeste still has a respectable 44 magic power, even with that nerf, due to the fact that they have the Magus Rod and other magic power boosting gear. So
yeah,
kind of interesting
magic
that
power
we might
boosting
have
gear can more than make up for the minus and get to like a normal level of magic. If we found an Esper that also gave us like the level up stat boost, you know, we could have a powerful mage by the end. But because of the spell animations, it's like hitting is often faster. Then
here we go. So this is what we were looking for here. Yeah, we have a noise blaster. We're fine.
Oh, then this is nothing at all. Just because of the scaling, I was like, they're gonna have a punch, but
I believe that Muddle is also on another Esper too that Questifer Workin may have, so he might be able to just use Muddle, which is the vanilla speedrun strat for Katana Soul. He is not weak to instant death. However, his Slayer Edge bypasses his own instant death immunity. It's pretty nuts. And we do get the offering plus the 65k, so definitely can go buy that Esper at Zen Thief, or go to the one at the auction house if we're really hurting for it later on.
Buy whatever we want.
We could buy another experience egg, although I don't think
close to being able to buy
it.
that imp robot. In fact, like if we sell all of our dice and if we use our dice to make and we bet it all our GP on one roll of dice, then we can flip that into imp robot money pretty quick.
We just got to flip that 2-sided coin for it. All right, so let's see if Christopher Warkin he's just gonna go for it. We are gonna get the offering though here, which does benefit the fixed dice because the fixed dice, as I mentioned, doesn't use the traditional damage formula, so that half penalty for each turn doesn't actually affect the damage of the fixed dice. So that's why it's great for an offering. And there we go. Wow.
Trip 4 is always max damage.
Question from the chat: is Slayer Edge like Calmness in that it's not technically an instant death attack? So it's an instant death physical, but even if you have instant death immunity, right, you still wouldn't be. Rather, if you had instant
piercing instant death physical attack, then
no, it's not. It's not. No. So the only way to get instant death immunity in Worlds Collide on your own characters is with a memento ring or a safety bit, but that only blocks magic attacks and not physical attacks. So it's quite different.
There is no protection, is what it comes down to for a character.
For your own party, but for enemies, they're immune to the wound status, which is what instant death basically inflicts, right? I don't know what sort of magic makes Slayer Edge bypass it for Katana Soul, but I'm just happy that it works out that way.
Yeah.
All right, another Esper there for Christopher Warkin. Drinks Glue is going to go get his story heal and jump off a waterfall here. Still not great spells. So even though Celeste has decent magic power, I think Flare or Meteor is the best spell that we have, and they're both not very great. They're okay because they're not elemental, but Flare takes forever, and Meteor is not that powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's partly a byproduct of a lot of the elemental and a lot of the spells are pulled out of the pool, so there's just less magic. Like, we just haven't found Ice 3, right? Like, that's the only one we'd be looking for on Celeste.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Christopher Warkin here is warping back over to the world of balance, coming back to Thamasa. So he must have seen something in Thamasa that he wants. I didn't quite see what it was. Oh, the Excalibur. Interesting choice there.
We got the VK.
It's not nearly as good as it is in other Final Fantasy games. It has a pretty high battle power, but it is a Pearl Elemental Sword, which means any boss or enemy that absorbs Pearl or nullifies Pearl, you'll do 0 damage to. So it's not like an Illumina that has a Pearl proc. It actually is that elemental property there. It looks like we're going to go make our way for Imperial Camp. So this is one of Saban's checks that you mentioned with the monster in a box and some force encounters. Just a Magus Rod, unfortunately, for Drinks Glue there, which is probably the one weapon in this flag set that you don't actually want to see as a reward.
I mean, with enough levels, a Magus Rod wielder will do a solid amount of damage. Like, it's not the best, and we have better options, but like with the amount of eggs that are floating around, and just like, especially with Drinks having bopped a couple dragons already.
Oh, there's character number 6 there in the caboose, and it looks like we are going to get rid of Saban. Thanks for nothing, you oiled up musclehead. As Terra has natural jump, so we have a dragon horn as well from Figaro Ancient Castle, and
build.
Here's the Pearl Lands. So there you go. That's a build right there.
Take that. Yeah, with the Thregs going on, that kind of means.
Oh, and here's Gao, my favorite character in the randomizer. So I think that Christopher Warkin did buy some dried meat early on, so we'll see if he decides to go do the Delt check right after this one, which is one of Gao's 2 checks along with Serpent Trench.
That'd be tough.
Well,
we've seen some monsters that I wouldn't want to fight again.
But we do get the forced party reform, and the Velt is an automatic character or Esper. It's not going to be a dead check, right? So
That's fair.
It's a good
It's just gonna
economical
be-
check.
It's just gonna be
You
rough.
just would, yeah, you'd rather do it at the beginning of the game instead of the end of the game here. Question from the chat from Pearl Earring. If a spell is removed in the flags, does the natural magic spell get replaced with something else? Yes. So the flags are where the spell gets removed from the list, and it just means that the randomizer won't randomize that spell into, an Esper or the natural magic list, and it will just pick from the available learnable spells, if that makes sense. On top of that, the natural magic list is not the same natural magic as Terra or Celeste's. I believe it's random spells and random levels. That's a throw gal as well. So it looks like we're going to have two different party members here.
Yeah. I love throw. It doesn't shine as much early in this flag with the magic, but with like our levels and having the vigor boost, like we probably have enough stuff laying around that we can throw for like end game, and just that defense piercing damage is nice. Plus, generally, most runners buy a stack of shurikens if they've run across them because they're so cheap.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Characters lead to more characters, right? And that's character number 6 there for Questifer Workin with Mog at the Velt. So for this flag set, there is only one character that gets natural magic. So Celeste's natural magic is unavailable, and Terra's natural magic is on Realm, as we found out earlier in this flag set. The levels that you get the spells at and the spells themselves are both randomized, so they're not the same as they are in the vanilla game for Terra. And this is an interesting fight here at the Phantom Train. It's one of the only times you get the switching sides SR Behemoth shenanigans here. Yeah, so in Worlds Collide... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, we talked about the undead being removed. The second half of the Behemoth fight is vulnerable to instant death because Haydn actually does have instant death protection, even though they're undead. But this one and other undead bosses like the train don't. But we don't even need that because Realm is turning into instant death over the course of this seed.
So that's character number 6 there for Drinks Glue, and Questifer Workin is going to grab their Megas hat down at the bottom of Barren Falls here, unfortunately.
I'm so excited about it too.
Yep.
Oh, so new character. We got a Mog and a Terra. Mog has 2 checks. Well, I guess technically 3. They're all in the World of Balance Narsh. We can do the Lone Wolf hike up to the top, and then we choose between the like reward or a high tier item, and the other one is the Moogle Defense, which is the newest check to the game.
It came out like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. It's not really all that new. But really Worlds Collide is in development. We do make updates to the game, so it is fun to see different things. And wow, more quad 9 dice rolls against Air Force. So yeah, Drinks Glue doing Terra's Welk check. So that's one of her checks. The other one is the Sealed Gate Cave. Then we have the boss on the other side of the screen, Funbaba. That is a check for Terra in the World of Balance World of Ruin Moblas, rather. And then we have the Leet River and Zozo Tower. So Terra has 5 spots available to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Mobley's one we can preview by talking to a particular child in the basement of like the front building.
Yeah, it's always funny when the reward is an item. It's like, don't take Magus Rod away. It's like, the Magus Rod was looking after you, kid. Like, I don't know if this is a good thing.
So yeah, Schwann's, both of our runners, they have their character requirements, and they're
Mm.
looking for espers. How would, if we were in their shoes, choose our checks from this point forward, knowing that we just need espers in order to unlock the final Kefka?
Yeah, so we were talking about which checks reward what type of thing while we were talking about the character gating system. And what I would do is I would favor checks or prioritize checks that reward either espers or items, because we don't need another character, or ones that we could peek what the reward is before we start doing it. Like the Phantom Train, we saw it was Terra before we got to the end of it, right? So I would prioritize those checks and deprioritize ones where we can't tell what the reward is before we start doing it, or is something that could reward a character. Because that's something we definitely don't need at this point, unless we're not happy with our party. And I believe both of the runners are probably happy with their parties now. As Hefe said in the chat, Magitech 1 and 2, that would be my go-to for the end of the game here. Interesting thing to note, Fitz, we did write this down at the beginning. The Kefka Tower skip in this one is either 8 characters or 11 espers or 25 checks. So if we, let's say, accidentally stumble across some extra characters, it might not be a bad thing, because we could skip past a lot of the walking in Kefka's Tower and go right to the statues where the boss gauntlet starts.
Mm-hmm.
And we already know that there's 2 divergent paths here, right? There's the Gao Mog path, and then there is the Terra Sabin, Terra Gogo path.
Drinks Glue is known to be the foremost Umaro enthusiast, I think, in the land, but I'm seeing them really showing no mercy.
Yeah, this little girl is showing us why that she's called the murder child collectively in the community here. So I like Drinks Glue's play here, going to get his 3rd dragon. That will get him the auto haste status. So haste is not as big of a deal in Worlds Collide as it is in other games, because as you've seen, the battles don't usually last all that long. However, it is still really good for a jump character, which is what Drinks Glue has. Unfortunately, the Tritox spot, which is our ungated check, that is either Esper or item, had an item this time. Quest of Ruorkin is going to choose the Imp over the Ice Shield, and oh my god, it's another Magus Rod. Can we just throw these sticks into the ocean, please? Like, throw that one off the cliff.
Now, if you break a Magus Rod, what happens is that Magus from Chrono Trigger appears and casts dark matter, right? And that's how those work. Because then they would
AKA
be
Grand Train. Oh.
Yeah, I've always had this like in my head, like the animation for those is like the same. They're kind of the same thing. Are those 2 related somehow? The War of the Magi. I'm just putting strings on the board, and connecting them. We saw a Coliseum peak, which is cool. The Coliseum does have a setting to determine how if the rewards are shuffled or randomized, as well as how many of them can be previewed ahead of time. I think in this flag set, there's a pretty good number. So it's kind of like a barter
100 to
shop.
120. So it's about half of the rewards in the Coliseum.
It's a shop with a very big inventory, but it's not a guarantee that we can walk away with any of the items.
Right, because Coliseum AI takes over, and you have to let the game. You have to give up control of the game there.
It's one area where, like, a Yeti intentionally. Oh, we can't really imp our characters because they get healed going in.
Yeah. All right, so Glue heading for the Magitech factory here. He does have 6 espers. You can warp out after the first 2, or you can go through all the way to the end to the minecart ride. So it'll be interesting to see if he does that. With so many options available to Drinks Glue, though, I have to think that he warps out, because he has 2 of Sabin's checks and 4 of Terra's checks to do still.
Yeah, we're not in the need of levels or not interested in learning spells. I would say if one of these front 2 do not reward an Esper. I'd be tempted to just go to the back for the guarantee. But, you know, I think it would be probably the wiser call to still
just nope
out. Just faster check overall.
We do have a question from the chat. So does Terry get the morph on this randomizer? So all of the characters get a random ability, or in Gao's case, he gets 2 random abilities because he's the best character in the randomizer. But morph can be randomized onto any character. There also are commands that are available on temporary characters like Leo's Shock, or the Magitech command that you have in the very beginning of the game, or Bannon's Health also gets shuffled into the pool there, as unfortunately that is an ice shield. So 2 dead checks at the top of Narsh. Make that 3 with Tritok Cliff, and maybe we might get to 25 checks after all here, Fitz.
Yeah, we were joking around, but you know, the seed logic may dictate.
Yeah, because we're at 17 right now for Drinks Glue, and 13 for Questifer Workin, but he also hasn't taken on any dragons yet. So.
Oh,
here's another character.
I really wish there was a save point in this house. In the house, I wanted. It's not there in vanilla. There's no reason for it other than I just want to be able to save after doing Kefka and Narsh, but before doing this check, so that I can reset if it's something I don't want. But
Drinks Glue, meanwhile, did pick up a shiny stone there at the first Magitech spot, so we get Ultros 4 here at the second spot, where we have to kill Mr. Chupon, and then he'll sneeze us away. I think this is our first Ultros sighting of the seed, though.
That's true.
So it looks like Questifer Workin is going to try to take some grind fights here, and oh no!
Well, the thing about this guy is if we start running immediately, by the time they like finish yapping, we can run away immediately, which is very nice.
Yeah, he won't after that give up text, and before he does this 8 physical attacks, you could actually run away. So you just have to start holding it as soon as the battle starts. So Drinks Glue only has 1 more Esper to go until they get go mode, and it looks like they are heading to the back here for the guaranteed either character or Esper. So I think this will help them out either way, because if it's a character, right, that opens up more checks that are available to us. If this is an Esper, then he's in go mode.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like, well, what characters are still left on the board? Like, how many of them have like fast checks, or there are things that are like Esper item, and like, there's a lot. There is quite a decent amount, right? Like we haven't seen like Cyan or Setzer or Locke. Like, we could definitely get a character that has some good stuff going on, like a Shadow.
Yeah, so Questifer Workin definitely skipping out on the rest of those grind fights, because they're all going to be Siegfried. That's the thing about Moogle Defense. And we do get another Ultra sighting here. Question from the chat: is the final boss randomized? So it is not randomized. It is always the 4-part Kefka fight. And in the majority, I would say 99% of seeds, the Kefka fight does not scale like the rest of the battles in the game. It is unscaled, meaning most of the parts are level 65 to 70, I believe. So very high level, but since we have those experience eggs that we found early on, this is not going to be a problem for our runners. And here we have a train chasing you on a minecart ride. Imagine the horror.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do not have access to Blitz, so we cannot suplex the train. So there is a sad meme. Pour one out for the train suplex tonight, folks.
I did a Moogle Cup race earlier today, just like a pickup race, and I actually got to suplex the train, and I got a reward for it too.
Yeah, so one of the awesome things about Worlds Collide is that we have the objective system where you can reward different things for doing, different types of requirements. They could be kill this boss, kill this dragon, recruit this character, but also there are quests that you can do, and one of them is suplexing a train. So that's really, really fun. So we have more divergence here with Shadow at the end of the Magitech Factory and Strago for Moogle Defense. So what are the places that we can go, or rather think about going and not actually go with Strago here, Fitz?
So with Strago, we've got the Burning House, a huge favorite place to go. And
Casa del Fuego.
Correct. And then the World of Ruin, we've got Ebbett's Rock. We do the Coral Cave, fight the boss there. There's also the Fanatics Tower, which we can preview whether it's a character or not at the front, but then we gotta walk all the way up, and the whole we can only do magic is in effect there. On the we also just saw Shadow picked up on Drake's Glue side. Shadow has the check at Gao's dad's house in the World of Balance. There's Floating Continent. We're not gonna go there, probably, for Drake's Glue.
No, that's a very big time commitment
for one Esper. And then the Velt Cave, we can preview whether or not that is an Esper or a character. So those two would probably be, without looking at the Drinks Glue tracker, places I'm heading pretty quick to pick up one last Esper.
Yeah, he's at 20 checks here, so definitely on the bigger side of things as well.
Oh my
hello.
goodness.
No, he's not going to do it.
Yes,
is he?
He is.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's coming in.
Of course, on his birthday.
Especially after he's already like beat up on the Yeti, like feeling bad, you know, like.
Well, there is Kefka Tower skip there for Drinks Glue. I think we've seen basically all of the characters here, right? No, we're missing Cyan and Setzer and Locke. Yeah,
Setzer.
Oh
no.
So yeah, Turd's been pointing out until the objective system didn't really think of having side quests. So you can turn Worlds Collide into a key item hunt if you really want to with the objective system. You could say, in order to unlock Final Kefka, you need to find the Phantom Esper, you need to go beat the Ghost Train boss, you need to perform in the Opera quest, and you need to go find Locke in Terra. Right, and that could be your unlock Final Kefka requirements. So you could very well turn the game into a key item hunt if you really want to, which is one of the most unique things about Worlds Collide. And the reason why I really enjoy playing the game is you could make this game whatever you sort of want. I know we tend to think of it as a go get your counts of characters and espers, but it's really way more dynamic than that. And Drinks Glue sees Gao here at Imperial Camp and decides to hit that reset button because he already has 8 characters for skip, and Gao's 2 checks, while the Velt is pretty quick depending upon your your character RNG. And oh no, the last save is back in the Magitech Factory.
Oh dang, we were flying too fast. This happens from time to time.
We are back down to 6 characters, but at least Glue knows where to go get skip. So this is a bit of a time loss here for Drinks Glue, unfortunately.
Yeah, we get to see level magics, and the other encounter was Retainer Dark Forces. Is the Empire that was not messing around with the minecart defenses.
Yeah, if we had a lore user, Dark Force does cast a whole bunch of different lores that you can learn, but those retainers, when they die, they will cast the trade-off ability upon death. So basically you can instant death one of your characters. And Christopher Workin finds their jump Terra and is going to get Kefka Tower skip for that. So they are also going to have their skip. However, they still need 2 more Espers here. And I put the wrong
which have
counter
proven
up.
to be the hardest things to find in the game so far.
Well, we do know that one is in the auction house, and we also know that they're in Magitech Factory, which Christopher Workin is not done yet. So
I don't think we saw a character in the Yeti spot, so
that's also
there might
correct.
Be one there. Drinks Clues probably are having already done the climb.
Yeah,
not likely to go there. And Christopher, where was Shadow at again? He was at
Yeah, there's no way he's getting
Yeah.
Shadow. Shadow's at the
No.
end of the Magitech factory.
No. And there's only one Esper in the front of Magitech, right? Or was there two?
That's correct. No,
Yeah.
Was there two? I didn't write it down. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to like benchmark here of like, okay, so like, there's definitely a world where Quaywark comes out of here, and if it was two Espers, like they could very quickly get their like unlock on, the golden path that we know about.
Yep.
So to speak, but like this is still pretty close. I think Drake's Glue significantly has like the power advantage. Their levels are higher.
Look at Realm's HP.
The statues are always going to be a handful, but I think they're just in a better position to shred most of them and then really do a very fast final Kefka. Oh, doing the fish again too. Oh.
Yeah. So how Risopus and the Piranhas works in the vanilla speedrun is you wait for an audio cue. In Worlds Collide, however, we've randomized the time that Risopus appears to be anywhere between 5 and 55 seconds after the start of the fight. And I don't know about you, but it almost always feels like the higher end and not the lower end.
Yeah, I don't know where those fast fish are at, because post some clips of fast fish in the Worlds Collide clip channel. That's what I want to see. Those are the type of clips I want to see. Fast fish.
That's the type of content we live for. All right, so Drinksglue is going to go get his Umaro here, is then going to save before presumably doing another check. Let's see the ones that he has on the board here. He has Veld Cave that you mentioned, which is peekable. He has Imperial Camp, which he peeked already and is not it. We have Mobliz, which we can talk to the little girl about. Mm-hmm. We have Umaro's Cave, which we saw was not a character. And then we have Zone Eater, which nobody has gone to do yet. Yeah. And I don't think we will go and do it. So those are sort of the quicker checks, if you will. I don't even know if I'd call Zone Eater a quicker check. It depends on how good your dance moves are.
Guard RNG / player skill. I have a skill issue a little bit, and also I'm not patient with the things, and I will just end up trying to send it. And
you go for the full send.
Over time, but I've had a couple where it was just like 5 or 6 knockoffs, and just like I'm never.
Oh boy! Here comes a big blue bubble there from SR Behemoth. Oh.
That's some of that scaling. Senior Behemoth has the non-elemental element, and so we're gonna see more of this when it comes to the statues, but.
All right. Okay. We're good now. This part of this boss is nowhere near as difficult as the first part.
And recover. Nice.
Yeah, that is Sriracha Behemoth being a little bit spicy there, and that is a merchant sprite for Drinksglue face down in Veld Cave, and he's gonna still go for it anyway.
Check.
No, he has skip, so he's probably fishing for one of those high tier items. I don't know what Umaro is actually doing.
He wants something for the Yeti to use. I saw merit awards in a relic shop somewhere. So like, we really wanted. We could do some shenanigans with that. And Stooges. This is not necessarily the fastest fight. Although having auto reflect kind of neutralizes almost everything that they can do.
Yeah. So how Worlds Collide works is that
man-eater jumps.
Yeah, these count as human targets, so they will deal twice as much damage with the man-eater. So ridiculous amount of damage there. So unlike in the vanilla game, where these guys will just do sort of elemental spells like Bolt 3 and Ice 3, in Worlds Collide, we have this concept called element ability scaling, where the higher bosses go, the more dangerous the spells that they will cast. So basically, Flame Eater normally casts like Fire and Fire 2. He'll start casting Fire 3 or Flare Star or Merton as he gets higher and higher in levels. Conversely, if there are like endgame bosses like Poltergeist casting Fire 3, he'll, go down and cast things like Blaze or Elfire at lower levels. So it helps, sort of make the enemy boss fights a little bit more balanced based on the scaling that you've got. All right, so with Terra, Questifer Workin is going to get this Magus Rod, which is a bit unfortunate. Another Magus Rod for Drinks Glue. Oh my goodness.
Did you want a Magus Rod to go with your Magus Rod? Because we got the Magus Rods for you.
I think that's 5 of them we found so far in this game. Jeez.
Now, if you find 7 Magus Rods and then you combine them, this is what gets you the ultimate rod, which casts Ultima on hit, but doesn't split damage.
We could break the Magus Rods for a single target Hyperdrive plus Meteor plus Ultima. We'll cast those 3 in a row. Alright, so this is the Air Force for another Magus Rod here. And Questifer Workin is a decision. Oh no, we already went up to the top of Narsh because he's got Mog. So that's never mind. So where would we go if we were Questifer Workin? We have 2 shiny stones to go find. We have Magitech Factory. We have Terra's Mobilist Check, which neither one of our runners did. And his tracker is looking a bit more sparse than Drinks Glue's. And here we go. Zone Seek is the Esper there for Drinks Glue, so that will be go mode for them. Now, will Questifer Workin follow in the footsteps and go to Magitech Factory, or is he going to do this check first?
Ooh, yeah. It's kind of like...
Yeah, one more thing. We also have Fanatic's Tower for Questifer Workin, which is a guaranteed character or Esper. So if you see an NPC sprite at the bottom, you know that that's an Esper, rather. Questifer Workin also knows that the auction house can be or is an Esper too. So maybe he goes there after this. We'll see.
Yeah, I might even think about doing the auction house in the world of balance with the amount of just like cash we've seen flying around everywhere. Like I think we can just to avoid I just hate the Emperor, but I can't
see. The problem is in the world of balance, the items are cheaper because you
don't get them out of the
there's
pool.
No $50,000 item, right? But they don't come out of the pool. So you only have you have a way smaller chance. Everything is 25%. Versus in the world of Ruin, if you buy the $50,000 item, you then get a 50% chance at that Esper, right? So it's worth it because we have so much stuff. We have 7,000 Magus Rods. We could sell all of them and buy an Esper. And that's Drinks Glue with Go Mode plus Kefka Tower skip here at 112.30 and change. Do we think that he's going to do 2 more dragons for that auto image?
I do not think so because we have Fenrir, which is an acceptable alternative for the calmness. This multi-summon is not on this flag set, so we only have the 1 cast. They have the levels and the hit points and the gear.
Yeah, they're level 50.
That I would just be like, whatever, we're going. Especially taking the skip in versus maybe if we were doing our normal walk-in. There's 2 dragons along the way. Why not? Versus here is like, nah, it's time to get this over with. And I think they have basically at least 3 people that can do defense, piercing, big damage. They're pretty well protected. That doesn't mean that things won't go awry.
Yep.
What we're on the lookout for.
We do have,
a North Cross that blows everything up, or those Ultimas that Goddess and
oh boy,
Poltergeist.
Look at this Kefka Tower. Guardian at the Guardian spot, and then the 3 statues. Oh my goodness. So, Questifer Workin has some time to catch up here if Drinks Glue falters at some of these spots. However, with Realm doing 17,000 damage a turn, I don't think that this is going to be a problem. Nice heads-up play as well to use Capture on Sabin, knowing that you could steal a Force Armor from Guardian here. All right, so let's see what Zone Seek has on it. More Mute and Life 2 is nice to have just in case. Meanwhile, Drinks Glue showing us why Realm is called the Murder Child. Yeah, there's even the statue bosses I don't think are going to be an issue here for Drinks Glue. I think I'm trying to adjust the audio here on Drinks Glue's side. I think it's a little bit off. I think I've balanced it out here. And it looks like Christopher Warkin is going to head into the auction house here. We're back in Jador. He just has to sell, like I mentioned, $70,000 worth of stuff so that he can buy the $50,000 item out of the pool, and then he gets his $20,000 Esper at the end.
We got Doom in the middle. We got through the first phase with no North Crosses, or Northern Cross. The rest of this, it'll be over the next time Realm goes. So this was definitely the most powerful, twad for sure.
That's 35,000 damage with one turn with Realm here.
It's really going to come down to the Poltergeist fight. If they decide they want to behave like there's a player 2 controlling them, they can just win.
Yep. Yeah, Goddess is also no pushover in this flag set either, because like we mentioned with the ability scaling, she'll cast mostly lightning and water spells, but she does take a few turns here and there where she casts non-elemental things. So you might see some marsupials with Wombat. We might see some Womp. There goes the Megas Rods. Get out of my inventory. So it might get real bad against Goddess, but she has way less HP than Spicy Chicken does, and way less defense as well.
Yeah, that's very true. I would say the other thing with the Goddess fight, because this flag set leans towards physical offense, and I don't think we're seeing anyone swinging like Ragnaroks or Illumina because of her love token ability. If we're not using something like Offering, it could present a real obstacle when what was our most damaging party member now can no longer participate in the fight in the same way. I think we have Dice.
Yeah.
And we have Edgar hanging out.
Oh, and we have offering with Dice. So the love token counter will actually be useless against somebody with the offering, because the offering bypasses the love token status. And Goddess also, I believe, counts as a human boss. I'm not sure. I'd have to go look that up. But yeah, doing super duper quick work there of Goddess. Some of that is the levels, and then some of that is just great heads-up gameplay knowledge from Drinks Glue to know exactly how to counter each of the bosses he's going to fight in Kefka's Tower.
Yeah. Stacking. I mean, the jump damage with the high levels and the Atlas Armlet and, taking advantage of I think Goddess does count as a human for the Man-Eater. As well as certain parts of Final Kefka. Like, we'll see Terra do some big jumps, even not having the, usual damage combo of, a spear.
Yeah, Goddess does not count as a human target.
Okay, so that was just regular old...
Lots of damage.
Levels and...
That is Phil Swift, a lot of damage. And here we go. It's all been leading up to this one, Free Fits. The Spicy Chicken.
I mean, one of their bad things is casting Stop, but that's where the Reflect is, actually pretty huge in this fight. The other thing is, they're supposed to take turns and be hasted, but they decided to not do anything.
No.
And be very disappointing.
Yeah, so when you have your character, your own party hasted and doing 20,000 damage a turn, that turns Poltergeist into some chicken nugs instead of some spicy chicken. Yeah, I don't think Kefka's going to last very long. I think Realm might be able to take out Kefka in 2 turns just by herself. And we have 3 other party members for Drinks Glue. Are we going double Atma? No, we're not doing Atma fixed dice, are we? Okay, we're doing Atma and Man-Eater. So as you mentioned, Fitz, there are several parts of Final Kefka that are human targets. So that's both of the targets on tier 3, Kefka on tier 4, and 3 of the 4 targets, I believe, on tier 2. Let me double check that again real fast.
Yeah. There's just a lot of big damage devices in and the eggs, like the seed was set up for power, but with all of the like item reward checks, that was in the sort of fastest path. It was not necessarily like set up to be like a PB in this flag set either. Like it was very generous with the tools to get through it, but it made getting through it kind of, a little bit nebulous and winding.
It was kind of a chore at times, especially with all the dead checks we found. So, good heads up game knowledge here from Questifer Workin using Stunner Sword Tech 6 on Poltergeist, which has a chance to cast Stop. And Poltergeist is weak to Stop, which is why you see him doing absolutely nothing here, which is really nice. Meanwhile, Drink School on to the final Kefka fight. Here is Tier 1, where it's mostly physical attacks in this tier. And we want to kill that long arm first, susceptible to instant death. But we have just Realm doing quad 9s all over the place. Glue, however, did decide to bring Umaro into this party. And with the lack of targeting on Realm, has to be very careful to not eat a Quake death counter from the face if it's left alive at the end.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts of this fight where not triggering counters, making sure we kill certain parts in a certain order are kind of important. And as much as we love Umaro, they don't, pick their targets in a sensical way. So there are certain situations like they have the hit points that it doesn't matter is what it really comes down to.
Except on Realm.
They can even in Ultima, which is gonna down Realm at their current hit point level. There's enough offense with everyone else that it doesn't really matter.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and mute magic here, which is one of the 4 parts we were talking about earlier, and we could instant death tools as well. But I think the next target after that is going to be Tiger, and then hit will do 10 physical hits as its death counter. So that's sort of the order of operations for this tier. Both hit and magic are considered human targets. Tools and Tiger are not. So we'll see Celeste doing more damage against those 2 targets than the other 2.
So much damage.
Realm doing 40,000 damage a turn, though. Basically, he's going to make quick work of anything. And yeah, there's that human target quad 9s with the Man-Eater from Terra there. Ooh, bounce and reflect off of himself to heal the boss. That's not something you want to see there. Womp womp. Sometimes we forget the auto-reflect status, and most of the time it's good for us, especially at lower levels, because it's very difficult to survive some magic attacks early in the game. However, when we actually want to heal our party, it's a bit different. Out comes 10 hits, and this is where I think Drinks Glue's party is going to be in a little bit of trouble. Because remember, he can't use any spells to heal himself, so he's got to come up with other creative ways to do that here.
Yeah, I had the X Potion Realm to ensure their survival. Which is, they're probably only going to be doing like 6,000 damage a hit.
Right. It'll cost them in terms of time, but this is going to be a way safer climb now.
Yeah, because they're really Realm is really the key into
Oh
dispensing
boy.
with this tier in a controlled manner. Are we getting in the back half of the Guardian fight?
Yeah, so
It gets bad over there.
Celeste has got pretty low health and only is using flare and oh no! Here
Oh
comes
no.
Goner. That is that elemental ability scaling here. So this is going to be a reset for Questifer Workin. He's going to have to figure out how to deal with this Guardian fight again.
Oh.
Yeah. Goner don't play around. Meanwhile, tier 3 here for Drinks Glue. We want to kill the girl first, and the other part will death counter with the instant death physical special called Calmness that we talked about, but that's why we have the auto image status on our party to make that physical attack fail. And that's tier 3 done. I don't even have time. We're doing like the Cliff Notes version of the Kefka fight here, Fitz.
I know, and with Terra in the air, she's gonna come down immediately for this next tier.
Yep.
And do 2 to 4 quad 9s before the fight even starts.
Yeah, so Kefka has 62,000 HP. We'll probably not get off Fallen 1 with this particular party because we'll be under the 30,000 damage threshold where Kefka starts to counterattack. If we're under 10,000, or if he's under 10,000 HP, he'll counterattack with Ultima, which is not going to be a problem for Celeste Realm. It will for Terra and Umaro. And then we'll cast Goner, which we just saw Guardian actually do. So that is going to hurt our party, but not nearly as much as it hurt Questifer Workin because of the fact that it was a single target.
Couple of chops. Yeah. Oh, there we go. I didn't want to say it out loud because I was like, it's bad to root for an Ultima, but
Yeah,
a counter, a single target.
There goes Umaro to the floor, and Terra coming down. Time is on those 2 flashes, so that is a 1:26:35. Officially, get your GGs in chat for Drinks Glue, and we'll see if he wants to come chat with us.
Technically a win for Drinks Glue. I saw them get the Yeti hurt a couple of times in the run.
They pet the dog too, so I guess that's validation. Meanwhile, this is going to be a rough go here for Questifer Workin, and you can make a magic build out of the seed, but he's showing why it's kind of difficult to do so. Flare is the slowest spell animation in the entire game, and it does ignore magical defense. Oh my gosh, that's a 2,600 damage ink cast during Ultros's battle script. That's gnarly. Speaking of gnarly, we have Drinks Glue available for us in the broadcast booth. GG's, Mr. Glue, on your W here in this race tonight.
Oh, thank you, Schwantz. Thank you for the GGs.
Yeah, so I think your fixed dice were rolling really well for you early on and throughout most of the game. Is that just birthday luck? I'm sensing, or did you leave a crystal outside in the moon light?
I just want to posit something. Well, I'll have your attention.
Okay.
Has it ever dawned on you that a certain individual in our community, a certain high-ranking individual, trashes the fixed dice because he doesn't want you to use the fixed dice, so he has an advantage?
Oh, a little reverse psychology there.
Yeah.
No, the fixed dice is objectively one of the best weapons in the game until you get to a certain level, and your levels are extremely high, where you probably had other better options. But
no, I did not have better options because it kept giving me Magus rods. No matter how many dragons I killed, no matter how many dead checks I had. Got a Magus rod.
Can I interest you in a... Well, listen, you were the winner of the inaugural Gato Cup, and we did not find Magus in that seed, but that's why the game decided to give you a bunch of Magus rods.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so tell us a little bit about your strategy with the Doom's Rage flag set. Kind of a reliance on physical offense here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and most Doom Race Black said if you look at the item rewards, 4 out of the 12 are, or excuse me, 5 out of the 12 are fixed dice, Valiant Knife, Ragnarok's unlimited Netball weapons. So eventually you'll come across, multitudes of those good things. Just not tonight, Don't worry about tonight though. So eventually you'll come across physical offense some way somehow. And in the case of tonight, it just happened to be man eaters and the one Atmo weapon. And the one Valiant Knife, which wasn't even, I think, was found in the chest somewhere, so it wasn't even part of the item
Yeah, that
rewards,
was an ancient castle. Yep.
but some way, somehow, the physical offense always comes together. Sometimes a little faster than others. But yeah, so and the experience eggs. So I was like, oh man, experience eggs are for sale. That's fantastic. And then you find 2 experience anyways, 2 experience eggs anyways. So that's even cooler. So the lack of swords was made for it up in the bundles of experience.
So you did get some struggles here in the seed early on in Owser's Mansion with some random encounters, just deciding that, hey, you don't get to go for another 90 seconds or so.
That was fun. I had a text message I wanted to check anyways.
Oh, yeah, that's that. Looks like Christopher Workin here deciding that, hey, I'm not going to bash my head against the wall that is Guardian any longer. We're going to warp out of the tower and walk back in the entrance. So once you've used your Kefka Tower skip, you don't get to use it again unless there is another Kefka Tower skip objective. And this flags that there's only one Kefka Tower skip objective. So unfortunately, Christopher Workin is also putting his characters in the wrong party. He needs them to be in party number 3 here, unless he does some shimmying and shenanigans. Anyway, so we had that at Owser's Mansion, and then the not saving setback once you saw Gao. So was that just a case of, oh, this is annoying, this is dumb, I shouldn't have done that? How do you force yourself not to get really mad at yourself and continue onwards in spite of a mistake there?
Well, everybody copes a little different with their rage. Some people have punching bags. Some people you have, Zen gardens. I like to. I was kind of happy because I had found Yumaro just right before that. So that was kind of my Zen garden, if you will. So it didn't really get to me. It didn't really make me tilt or frustrate me in the slightest. I was just more excited I can get back up there and get Yumaro twice this seed.
Yeah, there you go. A double Yeti. That is the ultimate birthday present, having Umaro in your party twice.
And yet, we saw you down the Yeti twice. Once as a boss, and then once leaving him to plummet out of the sky from tier 4 of Final Kefka due to Ultima. So I was curious, as the head of the Save the Umaro Foundation, did you feel conflicted and having responsibility for the demise of Umaro, not once but twice?
That was a little, so the Yumaro boss is always not the same thing as the Yumaro character. That's a different Yumaro. Just like there's there's Kupop, there's Mog, there's other Mughals, right? So that's totally different Yumaro. But this Yumaro, I was a little bummed he went down to that Ultima. I was gonna pick him back up, but I already had Terror that was already up in the air. That was gonna come down and kill him. Plus, I already queued up another attack. There really was nothing I could do except I did learn the other day that emulators have a rewind button, and I hovered over that button for quite a while there, wondering if I should go back and do it. But for the integrity purpose, obviously, I cannot do that and disgrace the race with Mr. Workin tonight.
Incredible display of integrity. We appreciate it.
While the Save Yumaro Foundation, our goal is to save Yumaros. We do it integrably. We do not cut corners to save Yumaros.
Yeah, so there was quite a bit of divergence in this particular seed. There are kind of 2 different paths in terms of characters. As you'll see, Christopher Workin has a lot of different characters on his tracker in his party than you did on yours. When you're getting towards the end of the game, what was sort of your strategy for trying to acquire, those last couple of espers? Was it Magitech Factory having 1 dead check, forcing you to go to the back? Was that sort of a decision you made when entering the Magitech Factory, or is that like an on-the-fly thing?
It was definitely an on-the-fly thing because I was hoping that Tritalk or Welk. I was like, I need 3 more espers, and I have 4 great spots: Welk, Tritalk, Magic Factory 1 and 2, so I was like, hopefully, one of Welk and Try Talk, if I get 2 out of this, then that's, cool. Or if I get 1 out of the 2, then I just go there, get 2 more, or 1 or 2, whatever I can warp out. I have like 10 other checks I could go do. But nope, Try Talk and Welk were dead, and I think one of the Magic Factory were dead, so it was kind of like, do I warp out of here looking for 2 more? There's then like the other 2 options where some of saving stuff was dead, then it's down to like Elite River, Mobile or Kefka and Arsh type scenario, so I could have backed myself into a corner. Small chance where I had to do it to get more characters to get Espers, but an even larger chance that I had to, start doing some awful things that were going to be longer in the aggregate than just doing the end of Magic Factory altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're at that point, at the second spot, going all the way to the back is not nearly as daunting as, as it may seem. It's about probably, I would think, the same time as doing Mount Colts. It's just fighting all the encounters on the way in, which were also pretty rude on the minecart ride too, right?
Yeah. Doesn't get much ruder than Dark Force trainers and level 80, level 90 magic.
That's all of my questions that I had. Fitz, do you have any other questions here for Drinks Glue?
I asked the one about the Yeti. We talked about the Magus rods already. No, not in particular. Any last words of advice, since this was like a preview? Or if you want to pull the tactic that you mentioned and give opposite advice to psych out the remaining runners in the flashback battle royale for next week. Floor is
I do
yours.
I do want to point out that this is the 4th SpeedGaming race we've done this year I've partaken in. And all 4 of them I found Yumaro, and all 4 we've been very fortunate to win. So I know it's a small sample size from a data standpoint, but is Yumaro a liability? Or is Yumaro the new meta? Time will tell.
Well, is there anything else you got going on, Drinks Glue, that you might want to let some viewers and listeners at home know about?
Oh, fantastic stuff all around. We are starting our 3rd edition of the Moogle Cup.
Oh, there's your Illumina, Dragon and Kefka's Tower.
Oh, nice. I knew they existed.
Yeah, they're here somewhere. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Anywho, our 3rd edition of the Moogle Cup is kicking off March 9th. We have a collection of Moogles / new players to our community, our aspiring racers, and we take some of our season mentors, our season racers, pair them up with those Moogles, and we make them fight to the death. No, we don't make them fight to the death, but they do compete against each other with a lending hand from their mentor. It's a really cool thing. It will be taking place over the next 6 weeks, starting March 9th. And hopefully we'll have some of those races for you on SpeedGaming and some other of our other channels that we broadcast Worlds Collide to.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see the start of the Moogle Cup. I am a mentor myself, as well as I think Fitz is also a mentor, and Glue, you are organizing the whole event. So thank you so much for doing that. And if you're interested in getting involved with the game, and if you're wondering how do I get started playing, well, the easiest way to do is to go over to ff6worldscollide.com, which is our website, and then there's also a link to the Discord. And that's where you can join and you can ask a bunch of questions, and we're more than willing to help everybody out.
Yep. And as Schwanz mentioned, this Moogle Cup kicks off March 9th, but it is not a one-time thing. It is not a 2-time thing. It's actually a 3-time thing, and we're hoping for a 4th. So one day in the future after this, we will always have more Moogle Cups. They're just dependent on the number of signups as they trickle in, and when we get enough, we kick off another Moogle Cup. So if you are interested in learning this wonderful game, our Discord link is right there in the chat for you. And we have an amazing community of amazing players that would love to teach you it, love to show you it, and you can do so in the various avenues in our Discord below.
Yep, well said. So if you've got nothing else, Drinks Glue, we could focus on Christopher Workin heading back to fight at the Guardian spot here after taking on a dragon for himself, getting that auto reflex status, and getting Mog to finally learn Sword Tech 7. So hopefully this will be better the second time around for them.
No, we discussed all the topics near and dear to my heart, Yamaru and the Moogle Cup. So thank you guys. Thank you for Speed Gaming for allowing me to display, or allowing us to display our shenanigans on your amazing channels, and wish everybody a good night.
Thank you so much for volunteering to be on stream. Can't have the races without the runners, so appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next time. Enjoy the rest of your birthday, my friend.
All right, thank you guys.
All right. All right, so Christopher Workin here, finally getting his party back up to the switches spots, and I agree with him of going to do the dragon and doing the tunnel armor boss. Unfortunately, it was a relatively easy boss with not a lot of XP, but getting more levels underneath your characters will certainly help take on this guardian here, who at scaling is going to be at a maximum of 50 here.
Yeah, when in doubt, more levels can solve a lot of our problems.
All right, so let's hopefully see this going a lot better. I think having to rely on just a solo Celeste casting Flare was not ideal, and unfortunately, opening up with a fractional damage attack also never is fun. So one of the things I've been teaching my Moogle and Moogle Cup is about Kefka Tower party composition. I usually tend to ask, what are my characters that can solo a boss? And we'll put them by themselves, and then my other two leftover characters will take on the biggest bottlenecks of the seed, whether that be the party number 3 if we're starting at the entrances, or party number 2 if we're starting at the switches. And I think having Celeste with Flare on her own was probably not the right party composition. And it's just unlucky that we ran into a buzzsaw here as well.
Yeah, indeed. It's one of those where, like, we try to, hedge the possibilities. Like, think about, with shuffle statues, it's a little bit different, but, like, what's still in the pool, and use that information to make, like, the best possible decision, even though in hindsight we might learn like otherwise. Like, I've definitely sent plenty of like Illumina users into what turned into be like a goddess fight, and it's just kind of like them's the break sometimes, and like learning from that, and next time try something a little bit different. But
all right, so here's the Doom fight, which I think will go over very well here, especially with Realm with double-digit HP in that Valiant Knife offering. I think this will be just this one Sword Tech 7, which is doing massive amounts of damage, and then Realm will probably finish this off here on this turn. So unfortunately, we're not going to get Mog back up, but we're going to be done with this fight. Oh wow, Doom is a thick boy.
yeah, they both hit the ceiling on scaling for sure. So these statues, particularly Doom, and I think Poltergeist, Goddess has like a little bit less, but getting through, and that's what matters.
Yeah, at this point now, if you don't get a couple of extra levels for Kefka, it's not a big deal. In this flag set, the most difficult part of it is the gauntlet in Kefka's tower. It's not the final boss, right? Because as you see, we are very, very high in levels, and Drinks Glue's final Kefka fight, I didn't actually time it. Normally we do, but it couldn't have lasted more than 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, it was going so fast that
we couldn't even talk about the tiers and what they do. All right, so Christopher Workin heading up to final Kefka here. He's got a different set of builds than Drinks Glue does. We do have the common one of having Realm with that Valiant Knife and Offering, but we have some different stuff going on here with Sword Tech Mog, with Magic Casting Celeste, and then that Illumina on Edgar there. Pivoting away from the fixed dice, whereas I think Drinks Glue continued using it all the way through the end of the run here. I do kind of like that Kefka coloration, the gray and the slate blue. It makes him feel like really like cold and evil. I know his character is kind of clownish, right, with the very, very bright colors, but I think at the end of the world, you know, the dark and brooding color palette suits him way better.
This tower is, you know, it's dirty, grimy, like, you know, like oily, like, yeah, I would agree. The color, especially for like the end sprite, the color scheme is, it's giving the correct vibes.
All right, so there's the instant death on the long arm there. Now we get to go to work on the face. So the head is normally weak to fire, but we don't have any fire magic in the seed. So we're going to hit it with big sticks, and we're going to have Celeste use flare on it. Unfortunately, we have two characters here, Fitz, in Sword Tech Mog and Offering Realm, where we can't actually target their offense. So Christopher Warkin has to be a little bit careful here. Nice Pearl proc, though. And hopefully this will do it. One of the only non-physical attacks on this tier there, coming out with Dread.
Nice.
Has 11 remedies, though. So he's got the goods, because he's got instant death with Doom. We know that Mute was hanging around pretty early on, and we did find Fenrir. So I think this won't be too big of a problem for him.
Kefka can always decide to cause like issues, but yeah, I would agree that they have kind of overcome the biggest obstacle, which was the tower bosses, and now that's kind of a quirk of like the higher scaling, that the Kefka fights become more about executing optimally versus in different scenarios it's more of wringing every ounce of power I have out of what I have to get to the end, you know? Like, this is the Doom's Rage is going to be more of making sure I don't kill stuff too fast and trigger like a quake, or still skill, but it's less of that like sweaty am I going to get through this, and more of the like sweaty am I going as fast as I can through this?
Right. It's not really edge of seat, you know, in Wonder. It's more of the, you know, why does this animation take forever? Oh my goodness, why didn't my Doom hit? Why didn't my X Zone hit? Right, those are the things you start complaining about. Thankfully, though, Mog with Sword Tech has a lot of utility. Although he got hit with that sap or seizure status for Tier 1, Sword Tech 5 is one that basically absorbs HP and MP from enemies onto your character. So he just has to use Sword Tech 5 every once in a while, and I think his Mog will be fine. One of the builds that I really like to use on a seed with actual magic, unlike this seed, is having my Ultimate Caster be my Sword Tech user, because then I could just refill my MP with the Sword Tech 5 turn.
Yeah, that Sword Tech 5 is a lot going on. Sometimes it's like one of the few heals that we have topping off a caster.
Especially with the auto reflect that we got from killing that one dragon, right? Because we saw that sort of problem with Drinks Glue, where he had to resort to using an X potion on his Valiant Knife user, which means the damage from that Valiant Knife gets significantly reduced because of the way that the Valiant Knife calculates its damage. It's basically the amount of HP that you're missing goes back into the damage formula here. And another good heads-up play from Christopher Warkin, casting Seraphim and Esper Summon, which doesn't care about Reflect for healing his party up here. So, nice play here. This is not going to heal a lot, because this is basically like a Cure 1.5, but it's at least a good heads-up play. Yeah, 500 is pretty pitiful. There we go. Much better. Now we're good. So since magic is muted, he's going to do nothing until his death, where he death counters with up to 2 instances of this Dispel. So we're moving on to Tier 3. And this is where things might get only marginally interesting. Just because Sleep sometimes... Meteo is an extremely inaccurate spell, right? But it does deal a significant amount of damage.
Yeah, in particular because it can be cast as a counterattack, and then Sleep's turn can also be to cast Meteo. The double up is the real one that can go and find, final Kefka into like an oh no situation. So there's kind of like in my head, like I'm always like, when are they taking their turn next is a big thing that I'm thinking about in this fight. Just to make sure it's like, usually we can survive 1 Meteo, but 2 is going to start causing problems. And because that phase, we're generally trying to like get out of it fast. It's just bad to get put in a situation where it's like, okay, 2 party members are down. Do I need them? Like, do I just send it and figure out in the next transition how I'm beating Tier 4 with just my 2, or
do you spend the time to recover? Do you heal the boss back up in order to get out of that Meteo phase? Yeah, that's when the big decision making happens. And unfortunately, here comes Train. So this is going to definitely affect Celeste. Not so much Mog and Edgar. Edgar with that Illumina. Illumina will never miss, so that blind status doesn't matter for Edgar. And Sword Tech doesn't care about that as well. Realm with that Valiant Knife offering, the offering also never misses. So really, Celeste is the only problem with the Train status. So good on Christopher Warkin to recognize that and just say, I don't need to recover here. I just need to go. And here comes the final boss here, Kefka. So we might see Fallen One. It just depends on how lucky we get with procs from Edgar and how much damage Realm puts out, because I think Celeste is going to have to use a remedy on herself to put out some damage, unless we yeet one of those rods at Kefka here.
One of the Magus rods?
Not one of those. I wish we could. Yeah, so 8,000 damage. It's going to be another bit for Mog here, but I don't think so here comes Fallen One. And this will be great for Realm, but it's not going to be great for Mog, who's going to fall over and die there. Mega Elixir will come out here. So I sometimes like to play around with my Valiant Knife character with Fallen One. The problem is that you have to be very careful that you don't get an ultimate counter from your other characters. And here comes Hyperdrive. Celeste is going to eat this, and here comes the Goner phase. So we can throw whatever we want at this. Kefka is not going to counterattack, and I believe this is probably going to be enough Jigglypuff for Kefka here.
Yeah, it's going to be the Crack Pow. Great game.
All right. Well, we are going to have to eat a Goner, but we can't have very much HP left at this point, right? Even if we do have an Ultima counter after this attack, his Edgar and Realm will still survive, and then we're going to kill him on the next turn. But that 10,000 damage should do it, and there it is, the Crack, the Pow. GG's to our actor / Chocobo, Christopher Warkin.
Yes, our Warkin of choice.
GG's, Christopher Warkin. Congratulations
GG.
on finishing that one out.
GG.
Yeah, so you made a decision in Kefka's Tower. You said, you know what? I'm not going to win this Guardian fight unless I have a better party in this particular lane. So good to recognize that after, only 2 times hitting your head against the wall. I normally get to 5 and go, darn it, I guess now is the time to do it. But prior to that, was there anything that was sort of on your mind and worrying you about how, your sort of run was going up to that point?
Up to that point, the only thing that was annoying was the amount of Magus rods that I was fighting.
We're 2 for 2 on irritation about Magus rods today.
At least you put them to use with Celeste. Drinks Glue just had them sitting around. And you also sold a bunch of them to get the Esper in the auction house. So you know what? Maybe you should thank the Magus rods.
Yeah, it was. I was just annoyed at the amount of dead checks towards the end there when I was Esper hunting. Other than that, I felt like I was cruising. I think I got really lucky finding Edgar at Opera Disruption early, and just kind of cruising from there. I felt like my offense was solid. I rearranged a little bit when I found the Valiant Knife and that only Realm could use it. So instead of making her my magic user, I switched over to Celis and had Realm do that and found the offering quite quickly. I felt like this was a good seed for the most part for me until the end when I couldn't find those last couple of Espers and then Guardian.
Yeah, it was interesting. When you watch this back, you decided to short circuit out of the ancient castle there. Because you were like, hey, this is a long check. I'm going to go do Sabin stuff because you just acquired Sabin. Meanwhile, Drinks Glue went down basically a different path, got Go-Go in the ancient castle, didn't do their check, but ended up with some other different characters in their party because they didn't run into Mog. They instead found Umaro at Shadow's check and found Shadow at the back of the Magitech factory. So it was a pretty different route. And I think your check selection was slightly less favorable than his, just based on what your party, what characters you ended up running into, because you got Strago, right? And nobody wants to do Strago's checks.
Yeah, nobody wants to do old man checks. I faded Magitech Factory. Were the first 2 checks in Magitech Factory both Espers?
One was, you could take a guess, and then the second one was an Esper.
So first tick of Magitech Factory was a Magus Rod.
That is correct, yes.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, you were the only one that you were the only one that found an Illumina in the whole seed, and it was the dragon in Kefka's Tower.
Yeah, honestly I did that just for the auto reflect and to get Doom on Celis, to make sure I had plenty of instant kill. Did he find Cyan?
No, we did not find Cyan, Setzer, or Locke. Those are our characters we don't know. They're still at large.
Okay. So,
but yeah. So tell me a little bit about sort of your strategy behind the Doom's Rage flag set.
So I haven't played this flag set since we originally did Warring Triad a very long time ago. So this was just hey, look at this. Okay, we've got Celis and Realm. Awesome. Let's find those are 2 in a physical attack oriented seed. These are not the 2 greatest characters because they tend to be more magic focused, especially when we have a debuff to magic. So I'm sitting here going, yay. So especially when I couldn't find a whole lot of great offense immediately, it was, okay, make do with what I got, find something that works, and roll with it. And that's that. It's just kind of find my mojo and just go with it. Roll with the punches. It's kind of hard to explain. I didn't have a really preset strategy.
Fitz, do you have any questions for Mr. Warkin here?
Yes, as a known, enthusiast of our feathered transportation friends, we were talking about we need to have enough sprites so that you can have an all chocobo sprite party.
Yes, we do.
I think there's enough variety. Like if we really went just for like the model from the different Final Fantasies, we could get enough for every character. But yeah, I would say overall, like I thought very well run. You were working with a little bit less power, I think, early on. Like Drinks Glue had the double dice, which were rolling very well, but he also was, having twice as many chances to roll well.
Oh, really?
with a Genji glove, and then he had like an extra egg early on too.
From Albrook. Yeah, it was in a chest in Albrook.
Oh wow! I never wait. I never go to Albrook.
Yeah, I think you got one from one of the South Figaros, and there was a second one besides the ones that were in the shop. So it was pretty wild.
Yeah,
and I think you did a great job of maximizing like what you had found, and the levels are one of those things that just like kind of the power gap in terms of damage output between y'all's two parties just kind of continued to grow. So like I think like we look at the times, and a lot of it was just having the power to shred those tower bosses, and really for most of the race it was definitely still like pretty close. So basically, like I think you can be proud of a great effort out there, even if didn't take home the win
the times
tonight.
Don't show it. The times don't show it. So he finished right when I was heading into Guardian, the first go round. And if I had a different party at Guardian the first time, I think it could have been very different. I just happened to have the wrong party in the wrong lane.
I was going to say also you were both sort of neck and neck in the same checks doing Ancient Castle at about the same time. But like I mentioned, the divergence in characters, I think, is where really the time was differentiated, and the fact that I think a couple of your fights resulted in some deaths. There was that opera house at the beginning, right, where you had Celeste become a zombie, and then there was another boss fight where I think 3 of your 4 party members were dead. So that certainly didn't help matters either.
Yeah, I had a couple of fights where I kind of scraped through by the skin of my teeth, so to speak.
Right.
And the fact Glue is an amazing runner. He is an amazing runner. I'm right in that little weird gap between Moogle, where I would be in our Moogle Cup place, but I'm still a tonic level runner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. I think you're great personally, but if that's your own self-assessment, then that's
well. I may be great as a person, but I'm talking about my skill as a runner.
Yeah, well, we could all use improvement. How's that? But if So the fact that I was able to keep up with Glue, who's in my eyes an mega elixir level runner, for the vast majority of the seed, I call that a win. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm happy.
I think this is a really fun race, and I enjoyed that we had two kind of different paths through sort of the back half of the seed. The beginning of the seed was very linear, but the back half of the seed certainly had some interesting divergence.
Yeah, from what I could gather, it was very linear until you did Opera Disruption to grab Edgar, and from there you could diverge.
Yep. Fitz, you got any other thoughts, comments, complaints for Christopher Walken before we let him go?
Oh, no, not really. Just reiterate. Great effort. Also, thanks for jumping in, and you need at least 2 people to have a race.
Yep.
And so thanks for
True.
hopping in and making it a
Yeah,
race.
No, I had fun. So, and thank you to our Restream team. Thank you to SpeedGaming for letting us do this. Can't have a race without, can't have a streamed race without Restreamers and a commentary team and all that kind of good stuff. So, thanks for letting me be a victim. Is that the right word?
Sure, we'll go with that.
That works. Link to Discord, all that kind of good stuff. Come join us. It's a metric ton of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you as well for volunteering to be on Restream. Can't have the races without the runners, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yep. Catch you on the flip side.
All right. Okay, so one free Fitz. It has been an exciting night of racing. I had a really fun time watching this back. We have anything else, I guess, to chat about? We plugged Moogle Cup. The Flashback Battle Royale event is in week 7 of 9. So we are going down from 16 to 8 this week. I think this is going to be the biggest sort of axe drop-off that we've seen thus far in the event. So it's going to be interesting to see who makes the cut and who does not after this week.
Yeah, indeed. I know myself personally, I missed a cut by like 5 seconds.
Yeah, brutal.
And honestly, it was like, there's a couple more brutal flag sets like along the way. It was a little bit of like I can't believe I survived the Madwin week, which was like the very difficult, challenging, blah blah blah, and then the chainsaw, which was like a freaking like jet. I didn't find the things at all. It's just like, oh man, those are the breaks, but. Yeah, and I definitely look forward to some mentoring in the Moogle Cup and, I race in a bunch of other Super Nintendo RPG randomizers, so I generally always have, like, some shenanigans going on alongside of kind of my main of Worlds Collide.
Yeah, I appreciate you putting on the event. We talked about it briefly with the Jets of Time community. And are you doing mentoring for Moogle Cup this go round?
Yeah, I am a mentor. I have a VOD I gotta go review.
Same.
So yeah, I have some mentor homework before, like our first live practice. But I'm always excited about that because I find in mentoring helps develop my own inner like mentor voice when I'm like racing, and I always find after a Moogle Cup like my game is just a little more polished because I've had to like explain or point out some things, and in doing so I'm like, well, I could be doing better at this too though.
Yeah, for sure. And it also helps give a different kind of perspective on things as well. I definitely noticed that where
there's stuff I've learned just from some of the newer runners too, where I've seen some of the Moogles and it's like, whoa, they're really trying something, and like there might be something there, like I think it has potential to like expand the meta, and also like just newer players don't come with like necessarily the boxed in notion of like what works and what's best, so it's always good to like see it through new eyes and be like, I've even seen a little of this of like with the Jets of Time new player tournament where like a couple of y'all have been like, I might need to do that more, like just
Yeah.
watching a couple sessions. So yeah, it's just a really good time, and like I think it's just a fun way to help interested people like get a little bit further along, in a way that I know when I was new and there wasn't really anything formal, sometimes it could be frustrating just like solo, of just being like, oh, I just feel like I can't, like I've hit this like wall and I don't know how to go like faster than this, or like seeing like some of the times of my peers and being like, what, but then like having someone alongside of you and then immediately after to be like, okay, let's think about kind of the buckets where there are like opportunities for improvement and can really like speed up the development process for someone that's interested in racing, or honestly like participating in charity marathons is another setting where running it in a timed format to an estimate is something that like a Moogle Cup would help someone get ready to do if they've always been like curious or interested, or that's generally the criteria, is like, can you play, bring along some entertaining people to talk about it, and hit some sort of time estimate. Doesn't have to be the fastest, but I feel like I've been talking a little bit. We should probably wrap.
Oh yeah, for sure. We could talk about this stuff all night long. But thank you
I
so
definitely
much.
had a blast in the booth, calling it with you. Always a good time, even if we disagree on saving my ancestor in Chrono Trigger. We always have a blast calling these races.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you so much for stepping up and helping to volunteer. And I think that'll do it for us. So thank you so much, everybody in the chat, for hanging out. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.